All right, family. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Let me fix this camera right here. We're gonna have a good We're gonna have a good move a little closer. We're gonna have a good discussion tonight, y'all.
Yes.
Good, much needed discussion. I noticed on that last video I did with Griff and a couple of videos, and just in the internet. If you're on the internet, you see everybody using the word YN, 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 YN. I've seen people make videos talking about how they don't like the term. And yeah, I think it's time me and good brother Blue Pillar have that discussion tonight. Something important for the culture. Something important that a lot of kids our children are getting caught up in some BS, y'all. So yeah, Blue, just for the YouTube, just say Young Ninja instead of the other word because
Yeah.
they be on some shit sometimes.
Algorithm. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. But listen, family. With that being said, I want to welcome to the show once again none other than Blue Pillar 44, Cuato Cuato. Welcome to the
Quattro,
platform, my
quattro.
brother. Cuato.
Peace and
Well,
honors. Give thanks. Welcome, Radiohead Rich. Always it's an honor to be on the platform in service to humanity with another dope opportunity, to bring community together around these ideas and these concepts that are impacting us as a people. Our need and necessity to know about what a YN is or a YN culture is because, the potential activity around that culture, as you said, has now put a spotlight on the entirety of the culture. And I think that that's a wonderful place to start to show that that's not an oversight. The reason for that is because those are our children and you can't separate us from them. So we need to tackle this issue.
yes.
We need to come to an understanding. And finally, we need to do the accountability work. This at least starts with a conversation, regardless of how difficult it is.
Yeah, I mean, Blue, you gotta understand at this point, every young black man is getting thrown in the YN category. So it's like your nephew or and Red Pill's son, he's at that
Right.
age 18. When they see him, they're like, oh shit, there goes a YN. What are you doing now? He may just be chilling, but people are so defensive just by the image that's portrayed of him on TV. They may do something that's uncalled for. So it's like every young black man that dresses in the form of hip hop coaches YN, like no. So we got to get to the bottom of this and see. Blue, let me ask you this to start out the conversation tonight. You know,
Yes.
we're trendsetters. Hip hop is trendsetters. Everybody follows hip hop. You know, we come up with phrases, make it rain, this, that, all types of shit we come up with within this hip
Mm.
hop culture. Do you think this was something YN that organically became popular, or do you think it was a trend that got spotted by somebody that has an agenda, and it was like, oh, we need to focus on this. This would be a good one to make popular or whatever. Well, how did this become so popular, my brother?
I think that it definitely had an organic element to it, and that organic element ties into the street culture, which ties into quote unquote gang culture, and the gang culture derivative of it would be a YG. You know
Mm,
what I'm saying? And then it bleeds into the music, and the music becomes more neutral. So people perpetuate, these labels, but then they change them to fit their own branding purpose. So let's say Amigos will come together, but they're non-affiliated. So instead of saying I'm a YG, I'm a YN, a young, a YRN. I'm a young rich ninja. You understand? And then when somebody wants to copy the copy, then they start knocking that piece off, and then it just becomes the YN. You know what I'm saying? And then somebody will popularize that shorter form of that term, and it becomes a phenomenon. Like NBA YoungBoy will go and say, you know what I'm saying? I'm a YB. And then it just starts getting meshed and blended together. And these once again become titles that are, somewhat creating frameworks to fit in a idea, quote unquote, a demographic of people that we're speaking about, but then it gets broadly applied, right? Just like the word woke did. And I say that and make that observation because this is the 11-year anniversary, I believe, of Mike Brown and Ferguson, where
Mm,
that concept got its birth. So if you think about the idea of seeding a concept, that concept not being fully understood, but then them taking it, politicizing a
mm,
concept and the term, putting framework around that, then legislation around framework without identifying a clear enemy, objective, other than say we're going to war against it,
mhm,
right? And then it gets everybody caught up because then you like, well, who's woke? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the criteria for that? Oh, anything that's not in support or willing to bend over backwards, you know what I'm saying, to support white supremacy. You know, anything that looks like resistance to that, anything that looks like truth, where it's the version of, because remember, there's a woke left and there's a woke right, and they both share the same Bible, which is the behold of the pale horse.
mm.
So
Woo-hoo.
the reality
Woo.
that we live in right now is already contingent upon an administration that projects the need. You better have a conspiracy theory, and you better have a good one, but stand on it. So their entire reality is built around an alternative version of reality and an alternative fact machine.
Mhm,
So they know with terms they can create alternative reality and create alternative endings to those particular narratives that they're creating. And
mhm,
that's why they want to control the narrative so much. And that's why the you know who's have control over media. And they're
mhm,
spinning the narrative right now about what's going on over you know where,
mhm,
right? By controlling the narrative and whipping people into compliance, no
mhm,
longer giving them the willingness to make a decision on their own, but they're saying this is now contingent upon how you, the very livelihood in your home. If you don't play the game, you don't get no change. You don't get access to the game. And now that it's digitized in that particular way, here it is. And what we're seeing is the manifestation of the physical aggression of that by way of a police force or a military force to now protect what has been looted,
right, right, right.
but they already out of there. Like heat, they going in under 30 seconds. The heist already took place.
Blue, seeing what's going taking place right now, you're an older brother now. Me and you come from. You're a little older than me, but me and you come from the
I'm a
Tupac
younger,
Biggie era, the
right?
Tupac Biggie generation, that type of hip hop. Seeing what's going on now, do you look at the situation with C. Dolores Tucker and Tupac differently at the age you are now versus when we was young? We was like, FC Dolores Tucker, yo, she trying to da da
Um,
da Tupac. What's your thoughts on that now?
it's interesting you would ask this because I had a back and forth on the internet. It wasn't a argument, but it sparked a conversation, and somebody was saying, I think that hip hop owes C. Dolores Tucker an apology
Mm,
because if you look in hindsight, almost every single thing that she said came to fruition, and she was a town herald. She was ringing the bell, but people wasn't ready to listen.
yeah,
And I said that I feel if Tupac was still alive at his ripe age, he also would be able, in retrospect, to look back and himself maybe, offer her some aspect of maybe my response was a little too harsh.
right,
Because at
right,
the end of the day, this is a mother, this is Nana energy, but in the form that she's bringing it, concerned about her children, seeing that something is inevitably about to happen. And it's the same thing that we're saying now and seeing about our children. And it's
mm,
the same thing that my parents said about us. And they were
mm,
right to some respects. You
right,
feel
right,
me?
right.
Even if by the grace of Allah, by the grace of God, we are still here and with the opportunity to breathe breath. But I came up in a generation where everybody was playing with their lives, you know what I'm
Mm,
saying?
mm, mm,
And even knowing the value of your life was not a thing, you know what I'm saying? So to be in consciousness where people are speaking about the value and the vision, even 10 and 20 and 30-year plans, getting their minds out of the fog of the past to even be able to project to have conversations about the future within and of itself is renaissance and revolutionary. So yeah, and the children for that part have not had the opportunity to participate with that. Nobody has ignited their imagination. They have not been exposed to a vision. They do have the energy of frustration, but it's projected inward because they have nowhere else to project in, and we always keep telling them to go inward. Now they're dealing with internal combustion and they're boiling over. You know what I mean? And imagine and think about this. They are a generation that was raised completely on the frequency that we were responsible as a people for saying, this is the foundation I'm gonna live my life on. I'm gonna all the dirt of my past, I'm gonna polish it off and put it on this disc. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna sell my dirt to get clean.
Mhm.
Forget what happens to your seed. With no disrespect, I ask us to mentally project and think about a baby that has been exposed to DMX from a baby in the car seat up
Mhm.
until the age that is probably 5, and it understands what's being said and
Mhm.
why the people around them react the way that they do. And then by 7, the baby wants to participate. And by 9, the baby's outside. By 11, the baby has his first, you know what I'm saying? Send
Yeah.
somebody to heaven. By
Yeah.
13, that baby is, in the system. By 15, the baby's burnt out because they're on prescriptions.
You mentioned DMX. Let me ask you a question, Blue. What would be the difference between like when I was young, gangster rap, the face of it was a brother named Easy E. What would be the difference, Blue Pill, between an Easy E and a Chief Keef or Easy E and a King Von? What's because it's different eras, but we act like this era is like completely out of line. What's the difference, my brother?
Because when we were growing up and we were listening to NWA, at least initially in the beginning phase, some people really bought into it and they thought that it was exactly what was being said verbatim, word for word.
Yeah.
And other people understood that it was an aggressive form of entertainment. And it almost, it played to your imagination, it played to your psyche. You knew, it had a there's nothing more entertaining than the concept and the idea of black death and violence for some reason, because we see it in the movie all the time.
Mm.
But now we got a soundtrack to it, and now they're being edgy, you know what I'm saying? And now we're being exposed to cultures that we're not familiar with, but they with the ish. You know what I'm saying? Now they unleash. We have not seen this part of us yet. So people were very attracted to it. But when you did the homework, you seen like, oh, homie just got money in the street. He wasn't known for really letting off the sawed off. You know what I'm saying? Oh, we could just chill. You know, we ran the review and it came back that Ice Cube really wasn't a psychopathic mass murderer on wax. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what the bars would suggest, but you found out that it was just bars. And there was a whole movie called CB4 to explain that.
Mm.
The difference is that these dudes is serial. They have created a sport out of catching bodies and making celluloid wax proclamations of it. They don't have to bring it to the spell room no more. It comes with the spell on top of it. The spell in the spell room is subordinate to it. Like, nah, y'all got this. Go ahead.
Like damn.
Y'all taking it hella far. Like, nothing else needs to be said. Put that out now, though. You feel me? Because there's gonna be a million more that are gonna be opened up to us walking through when you are chanting that in your mind, in your headphones. But you seeing this and you're familiar with the story. Is how realer can it get?
Right.
They have cracked the they like, if fire emergency and you break that case, they've cracked that case of reality rap, my
Mm.
genius.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, so we should not be. It's not realistic to say that that's not rap. No, it's the rhythm and poetry of what's taking place in the streets right now, and the children are expressing it at a rhythm that is indicative of their heart rate, and the heart rate is sped up. they are at war and they're shallow breathing, and we did not teach them how to prepare themselves to handle this energy that they are now, in possession of. They are inheritors of the things that we born them through, but they was forged in fire. A lot of them not through love. Some of them through the activity that was suggested by the music when the spell was introduced to us, and we were experimenting with it. Mm.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's interesting, Blue.
Jump, 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 jump off. You know what I'm saying? No,
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
yeah.
Young rapper, right? Lion rapper.
Come here, baby, because she from the Y generation, so she could give me
Uh-oh.
Look,
submission.
I'm not from the YN
Nah,
generation,
I mean, expecting she was close enough to it.
but a lot of these young rappers, the YN rappers, quote unquote, their mothers are video vixens from the 2000s. These are the
Okay,
same women that was in the
that's great.
videos,
That's a great point.
popping booty, all of that. That
That's
these are
great.
the Trippy Red's mom, I believe, was one of them. It's a lot of, I think, and
Sexy Red's mother was.
Sexy Red's mother was, Sweetie was.
Yes, sweet mother.
So it's a lot of these, the men, the young men, and the young women. What's the other one? What's the other one? It just came to my mind and it left. When it comes back, I'm gonna say it.
King
But his
Von?
mom
I
used
mean,
to
King
be in
Von?
it.
Not King Von, right?
Maybe so. I wouldn't be
She was in a
surprised because
mix too. Yeah.
she was in
Oh,
Triple X.
Extension,
Yeah,
yeah, Triple X is
his
mama.
mom. So a lot of them, their moms used to be early 2000s when
Yeah.
music started to get
They part of the
commodified.
culture. Yeah, like they grew up in this. They are the children of it.
Literally.
Look,
Let me
these okay.
go ahead. Finish your point, Blue. Then I'm asking. Finish your point real quick. Go ahead.
These are generations now born of stripe that don't have no magua in them. There's no gizmo in them. It's just all stripe. And admittingly so, they call themselves super gremlins.
Mm.
And I'm saying this with compassion. I'm just being honest of the observation of what you get generation after generation
They mama
of the
was popping on
vibration.
Lil Wayne.
Yes, the vibration that creates flesh and bone. It sets a tone and creates flesh and bone. So the already it's at 440 hertz. Now, but what's being said on top of that, the energy, the frequency, the approach, and the aggression that goes into it, then the celebration. So people are actually celebrating to this.
Yeah.
Blueface mama.
Oh yeah, Blueface. Yeah. She right. Yeah. I want to. You know what I want to do since your queen just spoke just now, because I was watching a video and they were talking about King Von being a serial killer and how demented he was and the shit he did. Even after he died, they find out the bodies he had, and they was like in the comment section. If you go to certain Instagram pages, girls is like, "You, I know this dude is clinically insane, but damn, he fine." And just all these comments about how the girls was just lusting over him. I want to ask, and we know this thing where the a lot of people say the women are attracted to street dudes because of their the macho nature or whatever. I want to ask your lady, and I want to ask the ladies in the chat, if y'all could write and let me know what makes a man macho to you. And I only want authentic responses. Please don't say no shit like read a book, because I know you're lying. For most of y'all, not all of y'all. But what makes, because I'm if this is an epidemic where a women are like lusting over serial killers and thugs and murderers and pimps and drug dealers and all of this, I want to know what makes a man macho to the sisters in the chat, as well as to Blue Pills Queen and Blue Dream. You can answer the question first before I get to a couple of the responses. Blue Dream, you want to get on the camera? Because I know they like, or you good?
I'm
Okay,
good because
okay.
it's gonna be a little hard. I'm gonna try.
All right. All right. Yeah, but
But
what makes a man macho to you? Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you.
Honesty, please. Yes.
As I've gotten older, it's shifted. So when I was a little bit younger, like my teen years to my early 20s,
Yeah.
I liked hood dudes because I'm from the hood. I grew up in the hood. I like hood dudes. And I liked them because they had this they had a loose screw, meaning like you have to communicate with them a certain way because anything would tick them off, what we would now call emotional,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when you are a young girl, you don't see it that way, right? I was indoctrinated with the music. I lived in an area that was indoctrinated with the music. So
Mm,
we had a certain perception, and plus, you know how men were treating their women at the time. You think that that's, oh, this is how it's supposed to go because they're the ones who's together, not
mhm,
the right, exactly. So when I was younger, I thought like, you know, bad boys, people who risk their lives, people who was like on the edge, like you can't say certain things to them because you don't know what they're gonna do, you know, because it makes you feel like if nobody's gonna mess with them, they're gonna make sure nobody mess with me. So the crazier you
mm.
are, the better it is
Interesting.
because I'm safe,
Very interesting.
Right.
you know. So yeah, the money is a part of it, the you know, the aesthetics is a part of it, but we see the like hood dudes, it's like a false sense of security,
Okay.
you know. And they also know how to cater to because they hustlers, so they know how to cater to our emotions, our insecurities, our low self-esteem. So they know what we don't like about ourselves already because we all in the same fucking predicament. Excuse my language, I'm
Right. Right. Right.
sorry.
No,
So
gotcha.
they know how to so they know how to speak to that. And it makes us, you know, it makes us feel a certain way until you grow. You know, they say some women mature faster than men, and you notice that the man you attracted to cannot give you the things you know that you need now that you're growing. You don't always want to be in drama. You don't always want to feel like you're in danger. At a certain age, it's just not cute anymore. So now to me, what makes a man macho to me, your discipline, um, your strategy, your mentality, how you carry yourself, and men that, how can I say it? Because I want to say stand on a square. Like I love when men are, what's the word? Like when they stick to their word, when they have integrity. Um, but discipline and mentality is big for me, and character.
Okay.
Right. So I could see a same dude now that I might have been attracted to when I was, you know, younger, you know, acting wild, whatever, gangster type, whatever the case is. And to me, that's just dumb now. It don't make sense because it's not strategic. Like you putting now I'm seeing like not only are you putting yourself in danger, but you putting the people you love in danger. But
Mhm.
back then it wasn't that way to me. Now it's like, okay, now a real man, like he got to be strategic because you're not only responsible for you, but you're responsible for me, you know.
Yeah.
And I've worked too hard on my own to keep myself out of harm's way. That if I'm gonna, you know, attach myself with you, I can't keep coming into contact with your bullshit. You got to learn. Excuse me, I got to work on my cursing. But you got to learn how to. You know, you got to be as a man. I'm expecting you to have a certain amount of, lack of a better term, masculinity.
Mhm,
You
mhm.
know,
Gotcha. No,
there
yeah, yeah.
has to be a certain discipline and structure with you because like if you want the respect that you're asking of me, then you got to show me something that's worth respecting, just like I got to do for you,
Right.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I definitely appreciate it. Thank you so much, Blue Dream.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Let me get to before me and Blue Pill continue. This is interesting. I just want to get to a couple of the comments I see in the chat, Blue. Some of the
Mhm.
sisters said his mind, his protection to die over his principles, leader, hardworking, having priorities straight, good emotional intelligence, someone who is secure and cares about himself, man that take care of the family that they create, ones that take care of his children, emotional intelligence, self-aware, morals, respect, unhealed trauma, emotional intelligence, his mind, his energy, how he looks. Yeah, they're pretty similar, Blue. And the reason why I'm asking this is because the conversation is centered around, and I see the gentleman in the chat. I was talking to this gentleman with Griff the other day, the lack of fathers in the home. And usually the lack of fathers, you know, there's this thing going on between black men and black women where we're not seeing eye to eye, and you know, we got to figure this thing out right now. And so I'm just trying to figure out the mistakes both of us are making. And if the women are going for these type of dudes when they're young, because that's what they're attracted to, then we can see why the results is what they are on the internet
Yes.
right now. Blue, what's your thoughts on what the women say, women in the chat say, and the fact that your queen and many others, some of them discover this a little bit too late, after their first or second child, or in their 30s, or by the time they discover it, they say all the good guys are taken, and they discover it later on in life. What's your thoughts on all that, Blue?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you're saying. They have to find alignment, right? What they want in terms of their ideals has to line up with the person that they attract with that. And then they have to have the discernment to see whether that alignment is taking place before it's too late, before you have entered into a life contract, that for a man, what I'm saying? For him, he feels at least he's in it for 18 years because now this arrangement is no longer about rearing a child. It's about, for men having to potentially dodge payments, or, what I'm saying,
Mm,
figure out in their minds how to, it's just a whole world that leads to a lot of confusion that I'm not going to attempt to rationalize, but they get put in a blender, and then the child has to pay the cost and the repercussions of it. So I would imagine a lot of what we're seeing being expressed to these children is the anger that comes from that, that they didn't ask to be here, and then people not being able to be amicable enough to figure it out. But there was a lot of negotiation that had to take place for them to get here, for the that first activity to take place.
mm.
Like niggas was strategizing about that. Or if it just happened, then that's a whole nother thing that they frustrated with. And they like, y'all just wing me. You know what I'm saying? I'm a whole person. And like, it be the cycles of time. I'm in Harlem, we leave and come back, and some of these children are fully grown. And I'm like, children tell you about the cycles of time. And those split decisions can become a whole person that that's growing. You know what I'm saying? It has emotions and even has a purpose. You feel
Mm,
me? And
mm,
their job, regardless of how they got here and what they went through, is to find that purpose to unlock their true potential so they can participate in the procreation to create, to continue the chain of events, if you will.
mm,
Um and but it almost seems, and it's very interesting to me because I would always wonder what would the last generation look like before the machines, right? And then I was looking at the report, the thing that they did with the rats when they were studying them in the projects to see how many generations it would take for them to become non-populated, based on the fact that they would want to change genders, and then the other ones would take one another out due to jealousy. So they would knock down all the alphas and the betas just for want to be pretty and compete with the girls. And the girls don't even want to have children because it's going to stretch themselves. And, they were so into their physique and not keeping the tradition alive that they were showing, when you interrupt the mental process by disorientating them, that's why they put them in a maze. You can throw the whole thing off. And
mm,
I'm looking at where this thing is going, and I'm like, what would it look like? And it would look almost something like it is right now because the children are not even interested in procreating. And when I was 14, 15, 16, especially when I was in the streets, it wasn't, we was losing so many people at the age of at least by 16
mm,
that you was just every day it was on borrowed time. It was a breather because people was dropping like flies.
mm,
So you got PTSD by the time you're 19. That's when I called my first bid. I finally had an opportunity to exhale.
mm,
You know, they took me out the field. You know what I'm saying, to get my mind right and recoup, to go back and right into the field, and it just
mm,
starts right again. And you like, by the time you get to 25, you celebrating like it was a 50-year birthday. We really go hard for that. You know what I'm saying? And 25
mm,
is when I came into quote unquote consciousness. And I kind of knew that because my birthday equaled the number 25. So I had always had a conversation with myself that the year of 25, which equals 7, I was something monumental was gonna happen in my life
Mm,
that puts me on my God path. So
mm,
11 14 was 25. So I always been sitting on, and I know that I was born in 75 plus 25 is on 100, and you take away the zeros, and I'm the one. You know what I'm saying? And I convinced myself that I'm perfect because I perfected breathing every single day. And the day that I no longer perfect breathing, I'll no longer be here. But until then, until further notice, I'm perfect. And we all are. And that's the beauty of it all is that I don't even got to keep it to myself. I can tell y'all that y'all are all acing the test. You know what I'm saying? Everybody that's still here, that's still breathing, we've got the blessings. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And so to see the YNs that are not even interested in procreating, they don't really have plans for the future. They're crashing out. And I'm showing you the cycle. If you indoctrinate these seeds and their spin cycle, right? Their spin orientation, their reticular activating cortex system from incubation is a particular frequency
Yeah.
that is more so slanted on what is the word, aesthetic and nihilism. You know, nihilism more than it is procreation
Hmm.
or the flourishing or nation building. That's
Hmm.
not even part of anybody's conversation. So, and these are the hands of the children that we're handing everything that we're working towards. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So somewhere along the line somebody dropped the ball or there was a lack of communication. And as I've lived through generations just in this community, and I've seen what lack of communication does,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, now we got a whole situation that was created out of a lack of communication. And the only instructions that they got was through rap music.
Hmm.
And it wasn't healthy.
Do
Wasn't
you,
healthy.
hey, Blue, do you think it's healthier for because I know you talk often about how your father listened to jazz. He had a different genre he was into from his children. Is it
Yeah.
healthier for the parent to have a different genre of music than the child? Because now the child and the parents listening to the same genre of music. Um,
Yeah. Again, yeah, we're looking at a situation about the YNs that was created by the YMs, and that's the young mamas. You know what I'm saying? So the music that they listen to is the music that their children was grown up on, and they was contingent on New York radio or radio format to mix it with R&B. But they started moving R&B more out and just gave you straight ratchet, you know what I'm saying? Or just straight that aspect of rhythmic music that was like sub bass,
right,
808, right? There was creating a oscillation at a cellular level of these infants that was signaling something different in them to come to the surface. And then you give them the video games, and then you give them the diet, and then you give them the encroaching of entertainment around them from music, movies to politics now.
right.
Their president is with the ish. This is the era of the supervillain. You know what I'm saying? And they grew up on GTA. So we're discrediting the indoctrination level that the machine has done to turn these young rebels into child rebels.
Right.
And and then the direction not being there, right? Of how to redirect that energy. That's the job of men. Women can't do that for young boys. So even if you can't do it directly, then you step in and do it culture wise. I'm gonna tell you how this works.
Mhm.
Yesterday, I'm in Harlem, your hometown. Shout out to Harlem. I'll be there for Harlem Week this strong in.
Mhm.
First, I run into Smooth B on 125th Street. So this is Smooth beat, 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 Smooth. I'm a Philly at home. Do you have another? I want to get running, my
Morning,
brother.
my
So
brother. Yeah.
from the Bronx, right? But I remember being raised on certain hip hop artists and understanding the nuances when they went and get too disrespectful with women,
Right.
when they didn't talk about drugs in their music, when they did make an emphasis to every now and then, even though they made fun music, put messages in there. I always took note of that. because I knew how difficult that must have been for them in the genre at a time where hip hop was divided into two roads. Think about it. The Last Poets came, and just like it did in comedy and just like it did in sports, the Last Poets would have the message, revolutionary aspects of hip hop to deal with street commentary in the form of poetry. And then
Mm-hmm.
the other genre is disco, right? And it's also party and bull, which is where the Last Poets left off with their poetry that said, watch out for the Negro that comes with the form of party and bulge in the middle of the evolution.
Mm.
So, and then that gets crescendoed by Biggie Smalls even coming out with his first song being Party
Being
and
bold.
Bull, right?
Yeah.
Produced by Easy Mo B, giving it that direct connection to the ode to the Last Poets. And then that takes a different direction, that particular genre. So there's no responsibility factor in that genre. They there to party and oh shit, you know what I'm saying? And then
Right.
you get the results, the crystallization of that comes in the form of a trial where it's like there was a lot of partying taking place and a whole lot of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but the revolution of the sound of the people, the voice of the people, you know, that beacon, you know what I'm saying? We can kind of say that, you know, it crystallized into a form of a Kendrick. At least that's the position that he may occupy when there's a more refined version of it that exists somewhere out there, like even in a version of a Cambada or, you know, an artist that really has that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we are in those times, and the children have not been exposed to that counterbalance. They only know one thing. They only know one side of the conversation, and that conversation is instructional and it's on them because it's so much a part of their culture. They get introduced to them at a very young age. Like
Mm-hmm.
they know about Lil Durk, they know about O Block, they know about Chief Keef. They know about, you know, the New York drill. You feel like you said, like my nephew and them, what choice do they have? It's a very inclusive and immersive culture just based on the look, the culture of it, the fashion of it. Whereas he may not have that ethos, he might not be, you know what I'm saying, um, affiliated with any of them situations, but we live at a time, family, and we need to understand this because this is the changing dynamic, especially if you grew up in New York City in the 90s and the 2000s, that you understand stop and frisk. We're living at a time when they federalize the ability for you now to be stereotyped and profiled
Mm-hmm.
by federal agents, not just ICE. They unleashed all of them, and they will be going from city to city because that's a test run, a drill run that's being done in the Masonic capital happenstancely on the day of the birthday of hip hop, his 52nd birthday, right? Which is a mirror to 25, but also the day that the sun is going to last set at 8 o'clock. So it's the waning period of the sun. It's the last day of the dog days. So at the point when the sun goes from its strongest apex to now it's waning is when they press the button. In Chocolate City, so the dog days is the end of the observation of quote unquote, you know, our connection or alignment with Sirius. So now we're at the furthest point and it's waned. Sirius is where the souls come from, right? And all of our souls, whether you are Aboriginal, whatever name we fail to qualify to call ourselves, all of our souls in common, they come from Sirius, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure some people might argue with that as well. But for the most part, right, let's just go along with the narrative. So Sirius is all set. Osset is Sothis. Sothis is Isis. Isis is Sophia. Sophia is Columbia. The birthday of DC is July 4th because of its alignment with Sirius. This is all about Sirius. It's all about Cancer. It's all about you, the Chocolate City, that federal district, that battery, 10 square miles where the people sit there, right? Banneker City is there for a reason, and them people is, you know, a very important part of this narrative. So for them to start that program there and utilize the concept of the YN as the reason to, but the YN is going to give them what they're looking for. Because the footage that I seen, they not going for it. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
that's the indicative strain of DC energy, and they know that, and everybody else knows it. because they are a strain that is orientated in federal prison because there's no state system that if you live in a district, you don't go there. You go directly from DC jail to back then you go to Lorden. And Lorden was, you don't want to go to Lorden, right? Shout out to Rod Cool. He could tell you stories about Lorden. I was in the system 30 years ago. So this was 95. And I'm in Fairfax, which is right across the river from DC in Northern Virginia. So ironically, the person from DC that was giving me the whole spiel on everything the DC was about and what went down out there was a brother named Saquon. And at the age of 14, he made it to the Time magazine for carjacking in the capital of the district because he caught the body. It was a tourist that came through Southeast Berry Farms, where he's from, which is where Trump was talking about when they said, we're going to tear that line. He's talking about South. He's talking about Berry Farms, right? Which is right around the corner from the White House. This was them documentaries where they be like, they were selling keys right around the corner from, they talking about Berry Farms, the Southeast in that area. So, and this is all during Marion Barry's days and all of that. Rayful Edmond and Wayne Perry, when Alpo and them was really turned up in the city. So the brother Saquon, he was just, giving me the full lay of the land. And DC is different, bro. Like those are some different type of characters that have been conditioned under their proximity to the system, and everything that has been programmed and federalized with us as a people, because they attempt the federal programs first in commonwealths and places that are federal territories. Then they expand those programs outwardly. So DC is very much that. Baltimore, remember, that was the breeding farm area. That's where the energy comes from them being so, somewhat rambunctious out there. And that energy, what they call, how can we say it? Earthbound energies that jump, them spirits. Yeah, those are breeding grounds. You know what I'm saying? Maryland was a lot where a lot of these plantations were at. So just the ritualistic aspects of this area, you have to understand that DMV, right? You have Maryland and the Virgin Mary, right? You have Virginia and you have Maryland, which is the Virgin Mary. And in the center of it, you have the district, which is represented by a 555-foot phallus. So in the center of the Virgin, and you know what I'm saying? And her vesica Pisces sits the phallus, which is connected to the Oval Office, which also in front of it is a reflecting pool. So that whole situation that I explained to you is the ritualistic way that they set up and create intent to impregnate not only the rest of the union connected to the district federal wise, but also the planet and the globe. So whoever sits in the seat of 1600 Pennsylvania, which is 40 times 40, right? That person is permeating their consciousness to impregnate the rest of the planet as them being the leader of the free world. And that's what we have to contend with right now, with white nationalism sitting in that seat and then projecting through that 555-foot monument, white male dominance in the form of President Trump signaling his final triumph, because the search criteria for Epstein went down 85%. So now he feels fully vindicated. And the man went from being accused of doing awful things with children to now talking about the awful things that your children are doing in DC, right? And they have created a national emergency out of it. But nothing would stop. Senate went home and everything when the rest of the country wanted to know what happened with these children in the Epstein lab.
Right. I want to show a comment right now because this kind of ties into a question I was going to ask you later. It says men control the energy behind YN period. Now the reason why I want to ask that, Blue, is during the club era, back when clubs was popping, dudes would go to clubs and spend whatever they had to spend just to get in the club to be around some women getting free. Dudes is paying 100, 150, 60, whatever it was. Tupac said that if you want to blow up, make money. I mean, make music for the woman. He said that, right?
Yeah.
Was it him?
Yes,
Right.
he
So,
absolutely
for that,
did. Yes.
so do men, would you say men control the energy, or do you think because women set certain trends, because men are always chasing women, if women finally say, like, nah, y'all ain't it, do you think they are ultimate control of the energy behind YN? This YN culture, I'm sorry.
Come again. This is the first time that we see the change ever. Like we just recently saw a generation raising a generation. That's the first time that ever happened, right? That never happened before with a youth raised the youth. So that recently happened. Now we have a generation that doesn't necessarily want to procreate. So their opinion of what a woman thinks about them is not necessarily the same, right? If they're like committed incels or things of that nature, you're putting on for one another because the aggression that they exhibit is evidence of high levels of estrogen. There's nothing masculine about them. In fact, there's a high epidemic of when they're getting incarcerated for these crimes at young ages and they're getting filtered into the adult prison systems, they're becoming, Maytag men. They don't have hand skills. That's why they call the biscuit their wood, their it, you know what I mean? They it's an extension of what they consider to be their masculinity, because that's what they was taught when they was raised and in the environment that they were, especially if they was raised by a woman. It's clear and concise that the only thing that speaks volume in this society is violence, putting in that work, right? And they grew up in that as culture with a musical soundtrack to support it. So what were they left to believe after you go to the first funeral, right? It's a perpetual cycle. And yeah,
brother in the chat said, if women want to date a scientist, ninjas will be scientists out here. Niggas be reading
I
mad
mean, and,
books.
and, and they do have a level of magnetisms where they do set trends and what they do does dictate culture, but they also have, they're also going to follow the lead as well. So there's also going to be like it if it's a decision of the YNs not to procreate. It's not that they can't procreate. It's not that they don't have a level of attraction. It's not that they in a club and they clumped up together, but they can't dance with shorties or shorties don't want to dance with them. Right. So these are decisions that they're making themselves. Um, and again, it's indicative of these experiments that we see when we're looking at colony collapse, when we're looking at the ending of an epoch, when there's just confusion and the chords are somewhat crossed. So, and I think that there's preparation in time for the machines because you're gonna have the ratchets and you're gonna have the robots.
Mm.
And because both of them are dealing with a devoid aspect of numbing themselves to do away with pain or sentience. And then that sentience is going to be replaced with something that deals with a stimulus drip. Like they will trade anything if they could just get on a drip. We're talking about a generation of heroin fiends, my nigga.
A generation of what?
Of heroin fiends, of
Yeah,
opioid fiends.
yeah, yeah.
Riddling kids. We're not speaking about my generation that grew up with, heavy propensity for cannabis use. You know what I'm saying? And at the most, nicotine, my nigga. Like this shit has jumped the track. The shark has jumped. We're speaking about different generations that are influenced by different cosmological alignments. So I was born in the Pluto and Libra era, right? Pluto is transformation. Libra is relationships, contracts, friendships, shit like that, social settings. We became latchkey kids, right? And teenage, parents and things of that nature. That's indicative of the generation I grew up in, right? We were the first ones to somewhat be left alone to do it on our own and figure it out, right? And we explored and we became explorers for that, and prior to that, it wasn't done like that. These are the Pluto and Capricorn generations, right? And the Pluto and Sag and the Pluto and Capricorn, both on tail ends. So children that go up to like 30 somewhat.
From 95 to Now,
People from 95 to now.
like even like 2000.
Yeah, from like the 2000s to now. You know what I'm saying? Children that are born under that particular cycle, like they was raised on 50 Cent. They was raised on Little Wayne. I mean, we need to be honest, fam. Like, yeah, they don't know nobody. Yeah, YMCMB. Their emotions were mirrored and reflected by what Drake was instilling in them for 15 years. Like these were their homies, these were their brothers. And Nicki was raising the girls. You know what I'm saying? And this was the culture. This was what being drilled into these children. Like we were not there in high school with them. We don't know the pressures that they were going. This is iPod generation. You're hearing a song 100 million times. You're seeing videos over and over. This is when they drilled them with the marketing. And then they became drillers afterwards because the value proposition after it was destroyed. We seen it swiped on a chip drill. Like there's nothing left to discuss. It's all about the Benjamins.
Right,
And
right.
like I said, it has crystallized this year where you've been given as many details. I don't want to go further and get any more details. I've heard enough. Right. So I know how weird that energy got. And I know that the children have been cooking like frogs in that pot for 30 years, whether they know it or not.
Mm.
It's a frequency and it's a background frequency and it permeates because it controls culture. And we can see it evidence in every single thing around us. I don't know why we don't think that it is oscillating and expressing itself through our children, right? And again, the Piscean aspect of doing narcotics, listening to music, and then dealing with aspects of spirituality. Because a lot of them were introduced to that post 2012, regardless of whether it was the occult or New Age or what have you or whatever. Mad doors got opened. We seen a whole ceremony take place 2 years before the presidency, and people still haven't made the connection. Where Astroland was on November 5th, that was 10 bodies caught in Houston, right? And then we got this situation now where MAGA means, the fifth highest order of the satanic, church. And that's on record as Google. I'm like, I'm not stretching the imagination when I say the Latin of MAGA is magus, and it means wizard and warlock. And all we're seeing right now is sorcery at the highest level, the illest of gold plays ever. And they're being intentional and purposeful because it's being directed by, you know, priesthoods that don't miss.
Mm.
This is not happenstance. This has been planned for, and they are rolling a plan out in front of us.
Mhm. You know, we had the comment a little earlier, Bloom, about the dude was like, and the comment was like, if women love scientists, dudes would be scientists. This is another interesting comment. Somebody said the YNs doesn't seem to be into women. This might be the first generation that don't get fly for a woman or do certain like we did get fly, get haircuts, get shape ups, go to the gym. We everything was
Bro,
centered around with gold for the woman. This generate the YNs they and I don't think they're gay if you want to use that word, but they just not in a woman like that, bro. It
that's
appears.
what that's what I explained to you. They are exhibiting signs of extra levels of estrogen, right? Where they're just not in, because the willingness to go to violence so quick, right? Non-diplomacy, right? Non-interest in that aspect. It's like exhibiting a GMO seed. A GMO seed is a terminator seed. So a terminator seed is just here for this one round, and that's it. It's not looking because the terminator seed is going to be terminated after round one. So we're almost looking at GMO situations. And again, I'm not speaking as if we're separate from it and we're detached from it. Those are our children. Those are our baby. You know what I'm saying? That's family. They're still with us. We have to. It's a situation, a conversation that we have to have about people that are very near and dear to us. But at the same time, they've mesticized to something else where people feel that they're non approachable and they can't get connect with them. and they don't have an understanding or an overstanding of what they're going through or what they want. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
Because yes, they don't want a family. They're not interested in shorties. You know what I'm saying? And the shorties, I mean the young girls and the women, everybody's calling one another bro. So they are deneutering one another with their lingo and their language and their expressions to begin with. Everybody's on equal with a bro. What is a bro?
Mm.
But everybody gets that label, under one designation. And it's not, and this whole thing linguistically, this whole thing about spell magic, this whole thing about the magic handbook is what you answer to, right? This whole shit is about what you answer to. That's the proverbial opening of the door and allowing Lestat in. Feel me? What you answer to, not what you called, but what you answer to is everything. So, what is this identification and this quantification that they're having across the board where they just got this one word for everyone?
Blue, I want to ask you, when you've talked about spells and magic, and we live in a world that's dominated by an invisible world that a lot of us don't even know exist
Right.
because of the brainwashing or whatever. I want to talk to you. We've talked about live instruments. What's interesting to me, Blue, when it comes to possession, it's like when you're around a live instrument or you're playing a live instrument, it's almost like you can't act as low vibrational as you would act on a beat or a track if it wasn't a live instrument. I'll give you an example. I heard Future perform Mask Off, and Mask Off got the flute. Mask Off
Mhm,
is like Molly Percocet, and he was like
mhm.
changing a lot of the lingo when he was performing it to a live flute. And even myself, being a piano player, is just something that I don't know how to articulate. When I'm on the piano playing it, it's almost like your ideas change from when I'm on the computer making a beat. It's like it's a totally different vibe where that piano causes me just to act a little different, bro. So what's the magic behind live instruments and high versus low frequency?
Again, those instruments are exactly what they are called, the instruments. So they can give you access to portals, right? They can help you with your instrumentation and, you know, zip back reality and take a peek. You know what I'm saying? This is how Coltrane found the note between the note with an instrument.
Right.
This is how you journey and travel. The instrument is the vehicle. The instrument is the conduit. So you being on the conduit, now spirit can speak through this animate structure and really signal you in a way to do things that people say spirit took over. Like you were speaking, I think at the Dr. B event about auto writing, right? When
Right.
spirit takes over, people have ever experienced when
Right.
spirit takes over and writes for them.
Yeah.
When I had my awakening moment when I was the age of 25, spirit took over and I tore open a Saks Fifth Avenue bag and made a scroll and like all of the secrets of the universe, things that I would go to lectures later on and hear master teachers teach about because they said they read 1,000 books. I already had the scrolls with all of that information that was auto written through me. So, you know, the oscillation and the frequency of energy to move through you, is possible. You can create that through music. Music can give you yeah, music can transport you. You know what I'm saying? Music can zip you into a whole nother situation. And it's it's notes in music that can do that. You know what I mean? And when they hit certain octaves, those particular octaves are connected and tied into those interstellar points in your frequency that put you into portals.
Right.
You
Right.
know, I mean, music is a time machine. So why would an instrument be an instrumentation of time machine? It's creating a crystallized version of something now that's going to operate as a time machine. So it has to come from a superior, right, edifice that is made at a geometric specification that is so perfect that it's going to create tone, and tone creates form.
Mm-hmm.
And the ability for that form to come into fruition, right, is the true magic of what music represents as a medium. But I think that we have to very much be honest and take accountability that, almost like CERN, some of this music has opened lower portals to lower dimensional beings. And those beings are very much engaged and involved in all elements of our culture that celebrate this music, especially when the music, right? Because my theory has been that post Big and Pac, especially because them getting taken out was by gang culture, and then gang culture dominates New York because he who kills the king has now become the king. You know what I'm saying? And the crown got shifted. And ironically, the people who took down the king, they became the color of the town all of a sudden,
Mm.
right? So, and then now it has almost spread like a blob and permeated and crescendoed, right? And then you have different tones of blue in the midst of it. And it has just been going back and forth ever since. So we're just looking at remnants and ramifications of the fact that I think that our people have been at war since the towers fell. And I ain't talking about the ones on 9/11. I'm talking about Big and Pop. But then once the towers fell, M and X came in the game, and they represented an aspect of hip hop that was morbid. This was cemetery hip hop. That's where Big left it at with Life After Death, which was his post-human diamond offering. That's where he left it. He left it in heaven. And this has been in the afterlife ever since. So we are participating in the full throes of death culture, which makes the light that comes out at this particular point in time, which makes the light that has existed in the midst of this darkness even that much more meaningful when this story is all said and done. So shout out to the Cambadas of the world, the Black Dots of the world, AAs of the world, the Planet A, everybody who has put out music as a medium, but that medium operating as a vehicle for people to shuttle through darkness and light bodies.
Indeed. I want to take, we about to get out of here. Blue got to get up in the morning. He got something to do, take care of. So let's get, we could take one or two questions, Blue.
Of course, yes.
All right, let's take one or two questions before we get out of here. Give me some questions in the chat. I'm gonna ask the brother Blue Pillar. Name of tonight's show is I don't like the energy behind the word YN. For those who don't know, that is a term that is referring to our young black men out here, and it's YN, young ninjas, and you know what I'm saying, and it's not ninjas. So very derogatory term, and we're just trying to figure out how did it get here, how did it become popularized, and how can we move away from this type of term and behavior from the young brothers out here in the streets. Give me some questions. Let me see what y'all talking about. Blah, blah, blah. Somebody said, did the U.S. military DARPA department learn how to convert YN frequencies into chemical versions and then put them into snacks and toiletries?
You said that's Dark City. And that sounds like Dark City and Clone Tyrone all mixed in one. But I mean, there's a strong possibility. I know that one goes and coincides with one another. When I was visiting Chicago around 2012, Red Hot Chips was the ish. And the children almost ate it like it was their breakfast. It was a daily staple and a part of their meal. It was the regional go-to for them. The Red Hot Chips, and they would drink some blue soda. You know what I mean? And that was their diet, their diet.
Bad kids. Bad
Yeah,
kids.
so I'm sitting back and look at this, and I'm like, oh, it's just a matter of time before we see something that will resemble what this diet represents with those red dyes and those specific particular levels of chemicals that they were putting in those chips. You know what I mean? It was frying them babies, and the babies were speaking about digestion issues and irritable bowel syndromes and all types of stuff even back then. Because it's too much, but we have a very um, consuming addictive personality where we just do, and do. So there's really not too much discipline that goes with, you don't got to eat 10 bags of that a day. You know what I'm saying? So think about all of that sodium and think about all of that salt. All of that gets translated into aggression. All of that, means that you're going to pop. You know what I'm saying? And you really not going to think about it until after the fact because you got to sweat that salt out anyway. So you're propelled and pushed towards aggression, just based on your diet, and you totally being dehydrated. You know what I'm saying? So lesser and lesser abilities for you to be diplomatic, for you to be cool, calm, and collected. You know what I'm saying? It's just getting more minimized. So it's no coincidence that a lot of the pop up areas in these 13 regions in this country where you find melanated people are all, for the most part, food deserts. You know what I'm saying? It goes
Right.
hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. Let me ask this next question. This is gonna be the last one because we gotta get out of here. Blue, how did you keep your mind sharp and crisp while in the bid?
For the most part, that's where I had a lot of time on my hand and I studied. I got into reading all of the books that I had wanted to read that I didn't have time to. And this when I also started getting into fitness because I had a lot of time on my hands as well and a lot of extra energy. And it was a perfect time for me to um, operate consistency. I always wanted to be consistent with this regimen of seeing what I can do, with fitness. And I started all the way back then when I was 19. So I just took that time to do research and study and really work on myself. And I also started really getting into my art during that time. So that was perfect for those endeavors because those endeavors required like a lot of concentration, studious time, and dedication. So I also was like character building in the midst of it. I got awards for being an exemplary
Mm,
inmate. I mean, like I got the 5 stars plus the plus.
mm, mm. Indeed, no facts. Well,
But
real quick before we get out of here, Blue, what practices in jail you think we should be doing out here to help us in terms of discipline or whatever that maybe you was do you started in jail, you learned in jail, and you feel like, damn,
um,
this is something good, dope.
yeah, again, my introduction at 19 to that environment and being able to concentrate and focus and understand. I was understanding the connection between mind and body because you really have to have conversations with yourself. Your body has to fall in line. You know what I'm saying? And then, like I said, when I got introduced to fitness, it accelerated it because those conversations were a lot louder and it was under a lot more pressure because you on the deck now. So things is totally different. It's all eyes on you. So I think that and then coming full circle and being back in New York and being in the parks right now, that culture is in the parks. That
Mm,
culture has metamorphosized itself and it has turned into competition, which for some people is their source of income, but it also is their inspiration to become superhuman and do mutant-like activity and calisthenics. The discipline that goes into that can benefit anybody into any endeavor that they're doing. So the same approach that somebody will take towards bodybuilding or fitness competition on that level
mm,
is the same thing that a person should take towards business building, relationship building, you know what I'm saying? Or really doing their self audit and finding what aspects of themselves are the weaker muscles that they need to work on, the focal points. Um, I think that yeah, there's a beautiful connection, and I overemphasize and I really feel and know in my heart that this particular aspect of fitness can speak to these children, the YNs that we feel are unreachable, the ones that did not have benefits from a big brother, or uncle, or no man that they felt deemed to respect because they grew up only knowing about disrespect from, what I'm saying, people that they perceived to be men, or they heard about it from the women that they was around.
Mm.
So the fitness movement, that I'm encountering in these streets, I'm speaking to a lot of the brothers that have leadership qualities, and really emphasizing to them that if this is not being taught to children, if we're not taking this, attempting to get this into school, then it's just self-aggrandizing. Like, if we're not pouring into the children, what are we doing this for? One another?
Mm.
Only, like, you're doing it for self, granted, but after that, let's take it outside. Let's not just only lock it in competition. I want to see if I look better than you doing this. But it's like, no, these children need to learn how to do a pull-up. These children know how to need to do a pull-up, and they don't have to just be because they was introduced to it. They shouldn't have to go behind the bar to get it. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying?
Talk about it, Blue. Yeah.
Or go behind the wall to get skills on the ball because they want to compete, and they think that that's a necessary badge to have. That if you the nicest, in that particular paradigm, you're not gonna register because you don't got a jail record to go along with it. They like, yeah, you the Theo Huxtable of
Yeah.
a street workout, and you know what I mean. Like, nah, let's bring back nobility. The only way that we're going to intercede on behalf of these young men to convince them that longevity is worth sticking around, fighting for, planning for, and being more strategic for,
Mm.
right? We have to show them the glory of what that looks like. They never saw it. I never saw it.
Mm.
At least I didn't perceive what I saw at the time as a strong enough example for me to say, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm willing to take shorts in exchange to be an old nigga,
Mm.
right? None of them looked like they was happy. It wasn't vainglorious.
Mm.
The people that we saw vainglory, they was young like us, and they was outside getting it. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? And they was living it fast and furious.
Mm.
And that's what we recognize. That's what we recognize to identify it as. And everything else just wasn't as attractive because they looked like they was older but miserable, still struggling. And I think that people's children's orientation, when you grow up and struggle and you introduce them to the struggle and then you initiate them into the struggle, you feel
Mm.
me? The minute that they learn the alternative, they're gonna book on you and then call you crazy. And we're watching the children do that, and they don't have no respect for their people because they're like, you never fought back. You opted for this. You signed up for it. You showed up every day and clocked in for it. Right? They like, I'm not upholding it. I ain't with it.
Mm. Yeah, man.
I ain't
Blue,
with it. I'm willing to do whatever is necessary to make sure that they're gonna scribble in their face. They're gonna poke here, poke there. They be like, we're gonna do everything necessary to let them know that we don't want to uphold that old paradigm.
Mm.
So let us take time, y'all. Communicate with your children tonight. Find a way, to just have a conversation. Ask them what do they think. This is what I asked 11 years ago, real quick, brother, because like I was living on the West Coast during the Mike Brown situation, and I was watching it on CNN, and I was troubled by it because I wanted to know, because this was around my nephew's age group. I was like, what does my nephew think? You know what I'm saying? I'm not terrified at what I'm looking at, but I'm like, what I'm looking at is different. I ain't never seen it like this. And I'm only seeing young women really pressing the front line. I'm not seeing young men stepping to the front line, holding it down like that. But they're on the rap songs talking real tough. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna be at the club trying to throw it up though. But these sisters are the ones in front of the popo face. So I was like, let me go back east and be around my nephew just to see how it's, you know, if impacting his psychological development. Is he growing up in fear? You know what I'm saying? What signals is he picking up? Because I'm seeing something totally different. I'm seeing a psyop.
Mhm.
So yeah, like the thing that we have to do now is the thing. I mean, then this thing we have to do now, we got to tap into checking with these children, right? Because that's another thing. There's certain things we ain't do during C19. A lot of these crash outs is post C19s. That's what I'm hearing when I'm being debriefed on this. They like, yeah, these are the seeds that was getting programmed inside the crib that wasn't getting, you know what I mean? All of that stuff coming to the surface, and a lot of that. So we neglected a lot of them back then, made it about what, us and not them. So make sure that you checking in with them now. Ask them what they think about these campaigns that they're seeing on the TV. You know what I'm saying? Speak to
Yeah.
them about the new paradigm that they could potentially be faced with if the whole country is on some stop and frisk ish. You
Mhm.
know?
Indeed.
Um, yeah. So
No,
let's
definitely.
show the Wyans some love, family, but also know that, you know what I mean? Uh that they're going through something, and certain healing needs to take place. So you also got to give them their space. You know what I'm saying? Um, yeah, leave it at that.
Okay. Hey, with that being said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the show tonight. I want to thank Blue Pillar for coming on the chat tonight.
Yes.
Wonderful conversation.
Oh,
Yeah, you want to say something?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'll let you finish, and I'll give the people the last
Yeah, yeah,
update.
yeah, yeah. Blue, I'm Blue. Wrap it up. But before we get out here, I will be back Monday, family. Everybody enjoy your, yeah, probably Monday. I'll be back. Everybody enjoy your Friday night. Blue Pill, close it out for us, my brother.
Yes, next strong, and we will be back in Atlantis at the Invest Fest. We have a Yapit Connect to Your City booth that we are
Fire.
definitely going to be participating at an Invest Fest, a 20 by 20 joint too. So we're going to be in the building, just introducing the family to a lot of the new solutions that we have going forward. And again, minus new solutions, there's nothing that we can expect different from our children to do. But the introduction of things such as them having platforms that they can sell music and make their money, because they're good at that. They're good at these digital plays. They're good at you giving things and just getting out the way, and they'll figure it out. But let's definitely give them something. Let's be intentional about putting love on them. You know what I'm saying? And until we do that, we should not expect for anything to change. But with that being said, please tap in with us if you are in town. Pull up on us at the booth. Shout us out, see what we got going on. I have a lot of information to share. Shout out to Crypto and Red Pill. They're doing a webinar right now.
Right.
Pay me crypto. I'll be out here for Harlem Week this strong in. Tap in with us. See us, family. Oh, and Melanin Monday at Nicholas Brooklyn, free 99. You can pull up, family. The flyers will be available. We will be in the building, and it will be highly explosive. All right. Peace, y'all.
Peace, family. See y'all Monday. All right.